The silent partner, how I let her destroy her own life. As the wheels of the plane touched the runway, a familiar sense of relief washed over me. Another work trip completed, and soon enough, I'd be home. The plan was simple: text Sarah to let her know I was back, drop off my luggage, and enjoy a quiet evening catching up. But as I stood at the doorstep of our apartment, the air felt different. I fumbled with my keys, trying to unlock the door. Nothing. The key wouldn't budge. At first, I thought it was just a glitch, a minor inconvenience. Maybe the lock had jammed. But as I stood there, suitcase in hand, the reality began to sink in. This wasn't a mistake. This was intentional. The moment I reached for my phone, it buzzed in my hand. I glanced at the screen. A message from Sarah. "I've moved on. Don't bother coming in. I found someone better." For a second, I didn't feel the rage I expected. No anger surged through my veins, no wild thoughts of confrontation. Instead, a strange calmness settled over me. I took a deep breath, read her words again, and then sent a reply, "Are you sure about that?" I looked up at the door one more time, my fingers still gripping the handle, and then I turned away, suitcase in tow. No rushing. No yelling. Just a quiet exit. And as I walked down the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The next few days felt like a haze. Work distractions, too many unanswered texts, a flood of thoughts about everything that had changed. Sarah's messages kept coming, but they were brief, short words, empty phrases. Busy with work, she'd say. "We'll talk soon." At first, I convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe she was just overwhelmed. Maybe she was adjusting to whatever new life she was trying to build with someone else. But then came the video call. It was supposed to be a quick check-in. A casual chat to catch up after days of silence. As I spoke, I noticed something small, but enough to make my stomach tighten. The couch behind her, the one we spent countless evenings lounging on together, looked different. The pillows, those familiar pillows that had been in the same place for as long as I could remember, had been rearranged. One in particular was gone. The one she always sat on. In its place? A new pillow I didn't recognize. My mind raced. Was it just a coincidence? Maybe she bought something new for the living room. Maybe she was redecorating. But deep down, I knew something was off. I let it slide, though, brushing it off as one of those weird little things you notice, but don't ask about. Not yet. Then, the phone call came. I dialed her up, expecting an explanation. What I heard, though, was nothing like I expected. Her voice wasn't alone. There was someone else in the room. The sound of male laughter floated in the background, casual and unbothered, like it belonged there. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice steady but searching. "Oh, it's nothing. Just the TV," she quickly replied, trying to cover it up. But I knew better. Our living room had a sound system I'd personally set up. It wasn't the TV making that noise. That was a voice. A man's voice. I didn't press her further. Not yet. Instead, I waited. The tension in my gut grew, but I kept my calm. When I finally returned home, I was met with more signs. Her location sharing had been switched off, something she had never done before. And when I checked her social media, the angles of the pictures in our living room were different. New perspectives, ones I didn't recognize. Almost like someone else had taken them. Then, I stood in front of our door and reached for the key. It wouldn't turn. At first, I tried again, assuming it was jammed. But it wasn't. I stood there, my suitcase still in hand, as the reality hit me like a cold wave. The lock had been changed. After all those years of marriage, of shared memories, of a life built together, she had locked me out. Emma had closed the door on me. The woman I had known, the woman I had trusted, had already made her choice. It wasn't shock that hit me next. It wasn't rage. It was a quiet, steady realization everything had changed. And as I stood there, looking at the door I once called home, I couldn't help but feel like I had just become an outsider. Before I share what happened next, the moment that made me see everything in a whole new light, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to deal with a moment when everything you knew turned upside down, hit that like button, because trust me, this story is just getting started. By the time the 4th day passed, the pieces of the puzzle had started to fit together. Everything was falling into place, and I finally understood the situation in its full, ugly clarity. Emma wasn't just pulling away, she had already moved on. And the man she had chosen was someone I knew well, Daniel. He was a colleague, someone she worked closely with. A man who always seemed to be around whenever I was away, and whose presence had never felt completely innocent. I called my friend James, hoping for some clarity, but the words he spoke only confirmed what I already feared. Daniel wasn't just some guy she was casually seeing. He had a pattern. A history of targeting women in positions like Emma's, especially those on the verge of a big career breakthrough. It made perfect sense now, the distant behavior, the odd shifts in her attitude, it all pointed to him. While James was piecing together the personal history I had missed, I took matters into my own hands. I knew Emma better than anyone. She wasn't tech-savvy, and I had always managed our shared accounts. With calm precision, I logged into the cloud storage, the one I had set up and carefully maintained. The one Emma never thought to change. There they were. Photos of Emma and Daniel. Smiling in the same spots around our home, sharing quiet, intimate moments, taken in the last few weeks. The realization was sharp and painful, but it wasn't the photos that stung the most. It was the thought of how she had tried to erase me from everything. How she thought I wouldn't see the signs, wouldn't catch her in the act. But what she didn't know was that she had left something behind. Something crucial. Buried deep in the cloud, tucked away in a file she never thought to check. A document I had helped her create last year, an investment portfolio I had set up for her. I had funded most of the investments, provided the capital, and guided her through the process. But what she didn't know, what she never thought to ask, was that I had complete access to it. I had control. And now, with a single click, I had the power to liquidate everything she had built with my money. I paused for a moment, letting the weight of the discovery sink in. The power was in my hands now. This was no longer about betrayal, it was about control. I quickly took a screenshot of the document and sent it straight to my lawyer. The pieces were falling into place, and everything was about to change. I pulled up my messages and typed a simple text to Emma. "Give me 4 days. Then we'll see who found someone better." I pressed send and leaned back, a small smile creeping across my face. She had no idea what was coming. The final days were the hardest, but also the most rewarding. Emma, now realizing the weight of her mistakes, tried to reach out. Her messages flooded in, our apologies, explanations, pleas for us to talk. She was desperate, but I wasn't interested in listening anymore. Not now. I had a bigger plan unfolding, and it was moving faster than she could keep up with. I knew Emma's weakness. She had always been driven by success, by the image she projected and the life she had carefully curated. Her career, the house, the friends, everything she had, all of it had been built on the foundation I provided. What she didn't know was that it was never really hers to control. The investments I made for her, the opportunities one gave her, the promotions she proudly flaunted, none of it was hers. It was all built on my back. And now, it was time for the truth to surface. The night before the big meeting, I logged into our joint accounts, expecting to double-check some numbers. But what I found wasn't just an oversight, it was a bombshell. Emma had been siphoning money from our shared accounts for large, unnecessary purchases, art pieces, designer furniture, even a new car. And the worst part? She had been using her company account to cover it all up, hiding it in plain sight. The receipts were buried, cleverly disguised as office expenses and client meetings. She thought she had outsmarted me. I couldn't help but smile to myself as I typed one last message to her. Just had an interesting chat with the board about those expense reports. By the way, the new couch looks great. Original receipts would be helpful. Her response came almost immediately, but the panic was unmistakable. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. I leaned back, my fingers still hovering over the keyboard. It was all coming together. I was finally in control, and Emma had no idea what was coming. The next day, I walked into the boardroom, not for the ethics committee meeting she had been expecting, but for the meeting that would expose everything she had tried to hide. I laid out the evidence with calm precision, her financial mismanagement, the unethical decisions, the way she had used her connections to further her personal interests. I also presented screenshots of her conversations with Daniel, the man she had trusted over me. The man who had been a part of her plan all along. By the end of the day, Emma was left with nothing but a shattered reputation and an uncertain future. The career she had fought so hard to build? Gone. The life she had worked so desperately to maintain? In ruins. She called me one last time, but I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Her final text came in, simple yet telling, "You planned this all along, didn't you?" I didn't reply. Some questions don't need answers. And in that moment, I realized how true that was. Emma had made her choices, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. The game was over. She had lost.